So going into Act 20, be our first speaker in panels. So the person I'm going to present today, her practice includes advising clients on international, federal, and state income tax issues, corporate taxation, and the design and implementation of corporate reorganizations. Also, she has advised clients as to local taxation issues such as property, municipal license, excise, and sales and use tax. She has assisted in the negotiation of tax exemption grants and tax credits under various Puerto Rico tax incentive laws. For the manufacturing and service industry, certain hotels, tourism-related operations, agricultural activities, film industry, international banking operations, green energy projects, and services provided to foreign markets, and incentives to investors to become residents in Puerto Rico. It also includes certain hospital facilities. She has participated in the design, execution, and amendments of tax-qualified and non-qualified benefit plans and has assisted clients in complying with the filing requirements established by Puerto Rico and federal law. So she's a CPA, a notary public, a very good friend of the firm, BCMG. So I'd like to present the principal of JAE Legal, Ms. Jeanelle Alemar.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, BCMG, for allowing me to be here. I'm honored to be among all this group of people. Especially, I'm very happy to be able to talk about what has become basically my passion for the past 8 months since I started my business, or I think a little bit before that, which is to educate people about how to do business in Puerto Rico. When they asked me to talk about to talk about Act 20, I thought, how could I introduce this? How could I present this Act 20 law that has been talked about so much? And I just realized that I should go and do what I do basically every day with the prospective investors that call to my office, which is instruct them on how to do business in Puerto Rico, and I chose to do it in 10 not-so-easy steps. And let's start. Oh, but first, who here has already an Act 20? Raise your hands. Oh, we have some people already know. Well, maybe for you, this will be a summary, and maybe you'll find that there's things that you didn't thought about before, so I hope you enjoy the presentation too. And who's interested in relocating their business here and are willing and eager to learn how to do it? There you go. Good. Okay, well then let's start. Step 1, understand the legal and tax framework in Puerto Rico. Obviously, you're considering relocating to Puerto Rico, so you need to understand the legal and tax framework. And as a matter, for purposes of perspective, I want to make a small comparison here. Mainland, the US, has islands both in the Pacific and the Caribbean. Hawaii, in the Pacific, however, was part of the Union since 1959. On the other hand, Puerto Rico is an unincorporated territory. And what does this mean for Puerto Rico for tax purposes? This means that basically entities that are organized in Puerto Rico are treated as foreign entities for US tax purposes under Section 957 of the US Code. What does that mean for me? That means that if you relocate your business in Puerto Rico under a corporate structure or under an LLC, your company will not be subject to US taxation, will not be subject to the US jurisdiction unless you are engaged in trade or business in the United States. That makes the Puerto Rico tax system particularly relevant because it's the only taxes that will be applied to your business. Therefore, you need to understand what is the tax system in Puerto Rico. Tax system in Puerto Rico, and the main tax law, it's the Internal Revenue Code of 2011, which is based on the US Internal Revenue Code of 1986. It's a little less bulky though. And the Internal Revenue Code in Puerto Rico contains all the provisions related to all the taxes, most of the taxes that apply in Puerto Rico and that are managed and collected by the central government, which are income taxes, sales and use taxes, excise taxes, gift and estate taxes, mainly. But there are other taxes that apply to businesses in Puerto Rico, and those are that are collected by municipalities or by central agencies on behalf of the municipalities. And those are municipal license taxes, which is kind of a permit, and property taxes, both on real estate and personal property. However, these are the main taxes, and that apply to every business that relocates to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, however, has relied on incentive laws for many years now to attract capital and to create development in Puerto Rico and to, most of all, create jobs. So in other words, if you relocate your business to Puerto Rico and you start doing business in Puerto Rico, under the regular rules, your entity will be subject to income taxes up to a rate of 39%, to municipal license taxes on gross income, to 0.5% for non-financial businesses, and that's collected by the municipality, and it will also, it might vary depending on which municipality you decide to locate your business, to property taxes, and to sales and use tax. Basically, the sales and use tax, in the sales and use tax concept, the business becomes the withholder agent, not necessarily the taxpayer. However, you do have that responsibility as doing business in Puerto Rico. Those are the general taxes, as I said before. However, you might be eligible to request benefits under these or any other incentive laws that in Puerto Rico. Specifically, I'm going to talk about Act 20 and export services, but there are other tax practitioners here that are going to talk about the other laws during the day. So I invite you to stay and learn about all the possibilities. Step number 1. Step number 2, understand other non-tax requirement considerations. As Mr. John Borsha was saying, there are a lot of people that come here to the island not necessarily for the tax benefits. This is a great place to be regardless. I have had clients and friends that tell me I'm just here because of the waves. So Puerto Rico, it's a U.S. unincorporated territory. You needs passport to travel between the U.S. and mainland and the island. You have the U.S. currency. You have banking regulators under the FDIC with the deposit secures up to $250,000. You have intellectual property protection under the U.S. law, general applicability of U.S. federal laws, and presence of U.S. federal courts. So that in itself, it's a framework of what is to do business in Puerto Rico under the regular rules. So Jeanelle, yes, now I understand, or sort of, the legal framework, the tax framework, and what is good to be in Puerto Rico. Do I qualify for Act 20? Well, step 3, understand the requirements under Act 20. First of all, you have to understand that Act 20 is intended to provide an incentive to service providers, to the export of services. So first of all, you need to provide a service. You need to receive service income. And I emphasize on this because since there are other incentive laws, sometimes people confuse the type of income that could be covered under Act 20. No dividends, no capital gains, no interest. It's service income. Therefore, your business should be a service, should be a business that provides service, and most of all, that could be provided remotely. For me, remotely is crucial because you have to be able to export the service. You are located in Puerto Rico, physically located in Puerto Rico, but your client is outside of Puerto Rico. Therefore, you have to have the flexibility and to provide that service remotely. Otherwise, it could have tax consequences that will not allow you to maximize the benefit. It's not impossible, but in order to maximize the benefits under the Act, you need to be able to provide the service remotely. What type of service, Well, plenty of services, almost every service thinkable. Research and development, advertising and public relations, consulting services, or for any trade or business is pretty comprehensive. Commercial art and graphic services, professional services as legal, tax, and accounting services, and so on. Call centers, shared service centers, medical and hospital services, including reference laboratory services, investment banking and other financial services, So you've seen a lot, or what I've seen a lot, of people relocating in those areas, specifically in the financial area, technology, that it's, as I mentioned before, a service that could be provided remotely. What else do I need to know? Well, you need to know that the service needs to have no nexus to Puerto Rico. Therefore, as I said, you should have your client outside of Puerto Rico, but most of all, the service that you're providing have to have no relationship to Puerto Rico. Obviously, this is done to promote Puerto Rico as a place of business to the world. When do I apply? Well, my answer to that would be as soon as possible, because although the sunset of the law is December 31st, 2020, you really want to maximize the benefits that you could get from this law. Well, does that mean that on December 31, 2020, my decree is gone, vanished? No. That means that if you apply even December 30, 2020, you still can get the 20 years that the law provides for the benefits. As I mentioned, once you go through the whole process that I'm going to explain in a minute, and you get the tax decree provided by the government, you get a 20-year decree that can be extended for 10 more years that grants the following: 4% income tax rate instead of the 39% that we spoke about in a minute ago, 100% exempt distributions, 60% exemption from municipal license taxes, and 90% exemption from real or personal property taxes in the case of certain services such as call centers, headquarters, and shared service centers. Step number 4. Okay, Jeanelle, now I understand Puerto Rico. I understand. I think I'm eligible. What do? Run the numbers. Call your accountant, find out what are your sources of income, and run the numbers. Even though this sounds like a very attractive deal, you have to really make sure that this works for you. And the only way to knowing that, it's running the numbers. This is a very simple example in which a business running in mainland with state and federal corporate taxes up to 40%, and dividend withholding taxes upon distribution of 20%, has a net income in a $1 million gross revenue of $448,000. That same business can relocate to Puerto Rico and basically be subject only to a 4% tax rate, providing a net distribution of $960,000. That is basically a tax saving of $512,000, or a 51% per each $1 million. And that could be very attractive. Okay, I'm in. What do I do now? Well, you call your tax attorney. Why? Because this is a matter of tax law. And why do I say this? Because as Alberto mentioned, you're subject to Puerto Rico law. You, as U.S. citizens, we're still subject to the U.S. income tax code of 1986, and as residents of Puerto Rico, you're subject to the Puerto Rico code, and you're subject to every other law. So, and as I mentioned before, since Puerto Rico is considered a foreign jurisdiction for tax purposes, there comes like an interaction that it's basically international tax law. And if you really want to maximize the benefits, you have to consider in your tax planning all the decisions that you make. You should be careful not to get into a transaction that will jeopardize your planning. Step 6, create or expand your business in Puerto Rico. Well, why do I say expand? Because this is not a law just for people that want to relocate their business to Puerto Rico. I actually have clients, local clients like Abarca Health, that have expanded their operations to the United States and have acquired an Act 20. And this is very important because, as one of the speakers mentioned, this whole Act 20 program is changing the mindset in terms of what Puerto Rico entrepreneurs can do. So you decide, like in every other jurisdiction, you decide to start a business, and the first thing you consider is what's my vehicle? What's that? Do I use a corporation? Do I use an LLC? And I want to clarify that Act 20 provides that the applicant should be an entity. Therefore, although you're providing services, and many people are used to provide services personally, as a service provider, that will not allow them to apply. They need to have a legal entity as the law is drafted right now. You create the entity. Since Puerto Rico does not have a register, you have to register with the IRS. And you have to register with the Puerto Rico Treasury Department. You have to obtain a merchant's register certificate. And I should add, you have to open a bank account. Step 7. Well, I have my business in place. What do? You apply for the benefits. And what do I need to know in terms of applying for the benefits? In terms of procedural matters, you need to know that the governmental agency that is in charge of evaluating and granting the tax decrees is the Office of Industrial Tax Exemption, and that they have created a platform in which the applicants can provide most of the information that is needed in order to obtain the benefits and allow them to evaluate the eligibility of the business. Pursuant to Act 20, the term in which the process, how long the process takes, is approximately 45 days. However, considering all the new applications, as Alberto said, it's a triple the amount of the applications last year, it's taking a little bit longer. But you don't need to worry about that if you start your business immediately, because the effectiveness of the benefits are retroactive to the date of application. So either you can choose to commence operations once you filed, or if you desire so, you can wait until you get the tax decree. Applications filed after November 30, 2015 have a minimum employment of 5 employees residing in Puerto Rico. As I mentioned, Puerto Rico has relied for many years in incentive laws to promote economic development and create employment. So the employment creation, it's basically the consideration for all these benefits. And you don't need to create 5 employees immediately. The Office of Industrial Tax Exemption and the Economic Department have issued a circular letter stating that you have a 2-year span to get to 5 employees and grow your business gradually. The tax decree must be accepted and commencement of operations notified. And then you have to file an annual report with the Office of Industrial Tax Exemption, and you will be subject to an audit every 2 years. After you file, the negotiations commence. There are some times that the Office of Industrial Tax Exemption will require you to provide additional information so they can confirm that, in fact, the services are eligible. And they need to understand your business. Remember that this is a contract between the government and the service provider. Therefore, there is a negotiation involved. Step 8, accept the benefits and commence operations. This sounds a little bit obvious, accept the decree, but you'll be surprised that I've had individuals coming to me that they forgot about the date, they didn't accept the decree in time, and the decree was revoked. Fortunately, in that case, I was able to negotiate the reopening of the case. However, it's a step that needs to be taken in order for the tax decree to commence and be effective. As I mentioned before, the tax decree will have a term of 20 years, could be extended for 10 additional years. Step number 9, registrations and employees. Well, you're ready to go, you have your decree, you commence operations. Here, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that since you're going to have employees, you will also have to deal with all the labor regulations here in the island, which are similar to the United States. Here in Puerto Rico, the Federal Standards on Labor Act also applies, which means that we do have a minimum wage, but there are other laws that are applicable. And Puerto Rico has special protections, a little bit more protective to the employees than other jurisdictions. Step number 10, okay, before I go there. Step number 10, well, remember that 51% that I talked about that you might be saving? I've been told by a good friend and client of mine that one of the reasons that he's here, it's because, well, he saves a lot of taxes and he didn't want to pay taxes to a government that he didn't feel like it was doing the right thing with the money. So this tax savings, more than 50% tax savings, is yours to do whatever you want to do. You can grow your business and expand your business. You can go to the Mall of San Juan and spend it all, or you can take a portion of it and decide how can you impact the community. How can you build a new society here in the island and really make a change? And it doesn't have to be money. I mean, currency, there's a lot of other currencies. For me, for example, time is my most valuable currency. And that's why I don't have just for-profit clients, but I just established a nonprofit called Integro Puerto Rico, Integro Foundation, in which I provide services to nonprofits that are aligned with what I believe in, including health, education, economic development, and arts and science. And these are some of my other clients, the nonprofit clients. And so step 10 for me would be to show your appreciation, integrate with your new community, and improve the image of your Act 20 company by giving back.